Hello everybody, welcome to lesson 10. We're going to be learning about how to factor. First, factoring by dots. This one you have a number squared minus another number squared. This is equal to x minus a times x plus a. The square of a sum. If you have two numbers, when you're adding them together and you square it, that's equal to x squared plus 2xa plus a squared. And then the square of a difference, x minus a squared, is equal to x squared minus 2xa plus a squared. Completely factor the following expressions. So this is just finding two numbers that add to negative 2 and multiply to negative 15. That's negative 5 and positive 3. This case, you have to have a 2 in front of one of the x's, because when you FOIL it out or you box it out, when you multiply the 2x by the x, that has to become 2x squared. So now we have to still have two numbers that multiply to positive 5, but when you FOIL it out, the middle term must be negative 11, or the x term. So negative 5 and negative 1 work, where when you FOIL this out, you get 2x squared. The 2x gets multiplied by the negative 5, so you have minus 10x. The negative 1 gets multiplied by the x, so you have minus x. And then the negative 1 and the negative 5 multiplied to positive 5. So that becomes 2x squared minus 11x plus 5. There's really no trick to factoring. It's just looking at it long enough until you realize which numbers work. Solve for all possible values of x. So for this equation, for the first one, we could factor out an x. That is our greatest common factor. Once we factor that out, we're left with x squared minus 1 on the inside equals 0. Then the x squared minus 1 factors into x minus 1 times x plus 1. And a general rule for when you're solving for a variable using factoring is you want to get it into its most factored form, and then you could solve for the values of x. So here, if x is 0, 1, or negative 1, then this equation is 0. So those are our three values for x. X squared plus 14x plus 49 equals 9. So here, if we factor and solve for x, we have to set the equation equal to 0. So x squared plus 14x plus 40 equals 0. Now we have to find two numbers that add to 14 and multiply to 40. And if we look at it long enough, we're going to get 4 and 10 equals 0. That means x equals negative 4 or negative 10. Here, there's 4 terms instead of 3, so we can't just factor by double bubbling it. Here, we're going to factor by grouping. So what we want to do is we want to pull out the greatest common factor of the first two terms, x squared, and then we could factor the first two terms into x minus 9. And then we want to pull out the greatest common factor of the second two terms. So we have minus 2. And the most important part is what you pull out in the second bubble. In the last two terms, what's inside the bubble has to be the same for the first and second groupings. Now, what we were able to do by getting the two bubbles the same is we could factor out that bubble. So if we factor out an x minus 9, to multiply, what do we have to multiply to get that x squared minus 2? And that works because if we FOIL that out, or we expand it out, we're going to end up getting this. So this is equal to 0. So that means x equals 9 or x squared equals 2. So x equals 9 root 2 or negative root 2. Which of the following is not a factor of 4x cubed minus 16x? Well, let's pull out the greatest common factor of 4x. Then what do we have to multiply to get 4x cubed minus 16x? Well, we have to multiply by x squared, and then we have to multiply by negative 4. To further factor this, we go x minus 2 times x plus 2. So clearly 4x is a factor, and x plus 2 is a factor. And x is also a factor, but it's just not one of the greatest common factors. For instance, if we factor out an x, we're still left with 4x squared minus 16. So it is a factor, but it's just not and when you fully factor it, that's not one of the terms that appear. X minus 4 is definitely not a factor, however. Calculate the following. Now, this would be very hard to do without a calculator if you didn't know the tricks. So we have 25 squared minus 15 squared. Using dots, we could just plug into our formula. 25 minus 15 times 25 plus 15. 25 minus 15 is 10 times 40 is 400. 81 minus 19 squared. So 81 is just 9 squared. So we could factor this by dots, which is 9 minus 19 times 9 plus 19. So this is negative 10 times 28, or negative 280. Solve for x plus y in the equation 2x plus 2y equals 12. Well, we want to factor something out so we could get an x plus y. So if we factor out 2 from this side, we get 2 times x plus y equals 12. So that means x plus y equals 6 if we divide both sides by 2. We want to solve for ax plus b in this equation. Well, if we factor out a 9 from this part of the equation, we get 9 times ax plus b minus 4 equals 23. Then we could solve for ax plus b like it was just a regular variable, like it were x. So 9 times ax plus b equals 27. I just added the 4 to the other side. Now if you divide by 9, ax plus b is 3. Solve for a in terms of x. Well, there's 2 a's in this equation, and we want there to be only one a, so we could solve for it in terms of the other variable x. So how do we do that? Well, let's factor out an a. A times x plus 1 equals 3. And if we're solving for a in terms of x, we just divide by x plus 1. So a equals 3 over x plus 1. If x plus y equals 12, what is the value of x squared plus 2xy plus y squared? Now the sum and difference, or the square of a sum and a difference, are not necessary to you don't need to memorize them. However, it's very good to know and be able to recognize. For instance, in this question, this you could just realize is x plus y squared, and since x plus y is 12, 12 squared is 144. So it's really good to know the formulas. X plus 2 root xy plus y. We need to factor this expression into the square of a sum. So this is going to be something plus another thing squared. Now, we know that the square of a sum follows x squared plus 2xy plus y squared. And if x squared, if this term is just an x, we know that, well, what squared becomes x? That's root x. And what squared becomes y? That's just root y. And if you end up foiling this out, we get root x squared x plus 2xy, so plus 2 times these two. Well, we have root x, root y, plus y, root y squared, which is y. And 2 root x, root y is 2 root xy. Simplify the following expression. So we could factor the top into dots. X squared minus a squared times x squared plus a squared. This is all over x squared plus a squared times x plus a. Well, these two could cancel out. Then we're left with x squared minus a squared over x plus a. Well, we could still factor the top, x squared minus a squared, into dots. So x minus a times x plus a. And the x plus a's cancel out. So we're just left with x minus a. if 8 over x minus 3 equals x squared minus 6x plus 9, solve for x. So it would be very annoying to multiply x plus 3 to the other side and then factor by grouping. Or it would be even harder to do that because we have a lot of terms there. So let's try to think of a little trick that we could do to solve for x a little quicker. So we know that I recognize that x squared minus 6x plus 9 is x minus 3 squared. And this is equal to 8 over x minus 3. So now, let's say you multiply both sides by x minus 3. We get 8 equals x minus 3 cubed, because a number squared times that number is a number cubed. So if we take the cube root of both sides, we know that 2 is equal to x minus 3. So that means x equals 5. All right, that's it. Hope you learned.